Kathy, can you hear us?
And if you go to the hamburger menu, you might be able to, unmute her. There you go.
Hi, Kathy, can you hear us?
Yes,
Hi, Kathy, we're beginning with your application for the box run.
okay.
If you'd like to tell a little bit about, your property and what you're planning on doing there.
Yes, what I would like to do is I have I'm looking to rent my efficiency apartment that's in my basement of my home, just occasionally in the summer and the fall, just basically to supplement our income. We will be living on site. It does have private parking and it does have a private entrance. And I believe it, in my opinion, I believe it will have no negative impact on the neighborhood at all. So I would appreciate your consideration in this matter. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay. Anybody from the public have any questions? Yes, ma'am. Huh? Oh, okay, excuse me. I'm getting ahead of it. We have to open the public hearing. So I'd like a motion to open the public hearing. Katie makes a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Tim seconds it. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Anyone against, raise your hand and say no. Van?
Understand that she said she was gonna be living at the site.
Yes,
And then people were gonna go on along a different entranceway, come in a separate entranceway.
Right, this is a basement like
Right.
apartment.
I'm familiar with it, I'm only 15 feet away.
Oh, so-
I will remind everybody if they would like to speak for a public hearing, to please stand, state your name, and before you go ahead and speak.
So would you give your name, ma'am? This is,
Jamie Anderson,
okay.
Ace, we need to spell.
I think it's okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And you got her question and. Very good. Yes, ma'am.
Tamara Van Ryn. Hi, Kathy. I'm the neighbor 15 feet on the other side. So I appreciate Kathy and the Pilatas reaching out to the neighborhood and letting us know what they're doing. And as presented, we have no opposition to what's being proposed. It's sort of what the classic Airbnb was. They've got 2 rooms in the basement. The owners are going to be there. That's a good use for, or at least a non-detrimental use for this particular neighborhood. But I do want to use this opportunity to say that not all Airbnbs are the same. And I really encourage the Development Review Board to come up with some working guidelines for these new permits. I understand that there is a reluctance to put anything like criteria into law, but you all could come up with working guidelines that are the things that you use to make sure that your decisions are not arbitrary and capricious. That will protect the Development Review Board as well as protect the residents of this community. So this particular neighborhood is a very, very quiet neighborhood. It's mostly small homes close together, a lot of retirees, having some occupants in a basement apartment when the owners are there. Again, little detriment to the neighborhood. But we did have a full-scale, full house Airbnb in the neighborhood that was marketed as a party house, and it was very problematic. We're very fortunate that those owners chose to sell, and that we now have full-time residents who have kids in the school and are members of our community. So just want to be able to say again, no opposition to this as presented, but really to encourage the board to please consider the specific use that is being proposed for the specific district, because not all neighborhoods are the same and not all Airbnbs are the same. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I do want to point out that the village board of trustees determined where these new applications for SPR were going to be located, where they were going to be allowed. So that didn't come from the development board, it did come from the village board of trustees. So just perhaps you might want to leave that comment to them.
Right. Yes, I understand how that was chosen. And I also understand that there are not objective written criteria for making the decisions. If I'm wrong about that, just let me know and I'll retract my comment.
Thank you.
Hi,
Jeremy Evans, 171 Charles Street. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. There's only 3 of you here, but for the rest of the development board as well, because it's important work and you should ask for a raise. That's my advice for today. Also, by the way, thank
did
you,
you give the town board a raise?
the town board.
Yeah, you had the development board in the town.
I should.
Before you,
Hold me to it, yes. Thank you also for your review of the pre-existing STRs. There was talk that it was gonna take years to get through all of them. And you guys just rolled up your sleeves and made it happen, which I kind of presumed you would. And so I just want to say thank you for that, because it helped a lot of people get off of this, just not knowing where they're at and then move on with life. Back to today, I originally planned to attend the meeting because I got a notice from proposed STR Chase's property at 159 Prospect, and felt that I would come just to be able to share my opinion, whether I liked it, hated it, or somewhere in between. I'm not going to do that tonight because I wanted to just start with this first project because I feel my comments are actually more general in nature and apply to all of them. First of all, I think I disagree with Tamara a little bit. There are criteria for you guys to look at when approving a special use permit. And as I was reviewing some of the applications, I realized that especially there was a differing amount of detail and clarity in some of the applications. And in general, I didn't feel like I had enough information to be able to say, I love this, I hate this, or it's somewhere in between. And I actually think it puts the applicant, I think it puts neighbors, and I think it puts the development board in a tough position when there's not enough information in order to see if a project meets the rules set forth in the STR law and the criteria for whether or not you should issue a special use permit. The applications do have a bunch of questions that the applicants are supposed to submit. And based on how those are responded to, they should give you guys a good idea of how whether or not the special use permit should be issued. And in most cases, those questions in the applications were not answered. I generally support the idea of owner-occupied STRs, and I think several of these are in that case, but of course you need to know the details. Lastly, I'll make a pitch. I know it's on the agenda for the village board's proposed amendments to the development code that would exempt owner-occupied STRs from the cap. I think that's a great way to help homeowners in this village make a little bit of extra income. Thanks.
Jeremy, thanks for your comments. I had my own thoughts about some of the questions for the special use permit, and some people can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard in the past when the special use permit was selected for this STR process, you specifically give a public hearing. These aren't necessarily special use things, they are allowable in the village, but I understand your point, and I did hear that from a lot of people when I let the agenda package out onto the internet. As of this morning, full answers have been given for all the applicants and applications. And so if you want to review that going forward, my apologies that it wasn't complete, and you can look at that before the 18th.
Oh, so that was just today though?
This morning.
Okay. Thanks.
So thank you.
yes,
Okay, sorry. I just have a couple other questions. I wanted to know if the owners were gonna always be there when the renters are in that
Yes,
area? Okay.
yes.
All right, so you'll be watching them and making sure that there's no parking on the street and all that kind of stuff. Because that's a problem we've had in the past with other renters. People were parking along the street and blocking the area, or parking in somebody else's parking area. So I want to make sure that the parking is primarily on your, in your driveway and off the street, and that somebody's gonna be there to monitor and make sure that noise and other issues that occur or arise don't occur.
Thank you.
Yes, can I talk, Katrina?
You can, Kathy, I just wanna also just say to the group and on record, the village does not have a parking, we do not have a parking policy that you have to have parking on your property. So that is something that is a village, that goes for the village, and so if anyone doesn't agree with that, I can understand why. But that is, we don't have a parking policy, people are allowed to park on the street. Also, part of being an STR, while I also do understand where you're coming from, the owners do not have to be there. So this is great that Kathy will be there when people are there, but that also is not a requirement of an STR. So just.
Well, that changes the whole situation then, because if she's not going to be there, then there are other things that can occur.
It's not a requirement to have an STR that you have to be there. She is saying that she is, which is great, but as we hear applications tonight and in the future, that is not a requirement of an STR.
Well, we had an incident on Fox Run down the street where somebody was renting. And the people were parking cars next to other people's homes. I don't mind you parking on the street as long as it's in front of your house, you know, that's.
That is something that you should, if you have concerns about that, I would suggest you bring it up to the village board. Because it's not something that we take care of here. And I understand, I respect your concern.
Well, and then what happened, I wasn't sure what was going on with this particular, short-term rental. But we've had experiences where more than one family has moved in or has rented a place. And it's just excessive, amount of people, noise, you know, just a whole bag of things that you don't know. And that's what I've experienced in the past, but if she's gonna be there and the number of cars is going to be limited to her area, I will address that with the village, of course. But, that's just something that, is a concern. Because, and I have people that clean houses for short-term rentals. And they come in and clean my house and they tell me all kinds of stories that are just hard, I can't even repeat them in this room. But they're kind of off color, let's just say.
Absolutely understand your concern.
Would anybody else from the public like to comment on the 21 Fox Run STR? There being nobody, Kathy, was there anything you wanted to add or anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you. All right, then, we will now move on to our next SDR. And that will be special use permit for short-term rental at 146 Petrova Ave.
We do not have the application today.
Okay. So, so this is directly across from the Petrova School. And it was an old trailer that was taken away, and these people built a nice little house there, and they're looking to rent it short term. I mean, they're not here to speak. There was nothing I really saw in the packet that was any different from any of the other ones. So we will open up the public hearing. Motion to open the public hearing.
That motion.
Kim makes that motion. Who would like the second? Second, like Kate. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Anyone against, please raise your hand and say no. Carry. All right, so the public hearing is now open for 146 Petrova Ave. Anybody have any comments or questions on this short-term rental? Okay. There being nobody, we will move on then. Okay, so this is an application for short-term rental at 333 Park Ave. The applicant I see is here. Would you like to stand up, just give your name and just give a quick little presentation about your property?
Okay, my name's Johnny Muldowney. I live at 333 Park Ave with my wife, who's a teacher, Trova, and my 2 daughters and my son. 2022, March 7th, we moved into our house, moved from Lake Flower, Park Ave. And when we moved there, it's a 0.91 acre, about an acre, as our primary residence. And we've got a cottage in the back. When we took over, or when we purchased our house from the Haywoods, they lived in the house, and I think they had a son living in the cottage. They moved out, and we took over, and we did not rent out that cottage. I've done a lot, trying to put some sweat equity into our property, cleaning it up after a decade of it somewhat dormant. And the moratorium's been placed on the whole village up until January 8th of this year. The moratorium was lifted. I read the article. I saw the quotes from Mr. Cooney, and I went to the village map that they recently laid out to everybody. I saw that there were 35 districts in the village. Of those 35 districts, there was 9 available districts with potential for an extra rent, another rent leave. 8 of those districts had 1 available, and 1 of them had 2. I looked at my district, which is H3, and it showed that there was an opening to submit an application for an STR. For me, it's real simple. It's an owner occupied. It's got a primary residence and a back cottage that's 20 feet from our house, right there. With 100% supervision. And our plan with that building is not to take away from the quality of life from our family, certainly, from our safety, as of next month, I'll have a teenage daughter in the house, both 7-year-old and 11-year-old boy. So I'm not looking to bring anyone on our property that is going to make our quality of life, our friends, our family, and most importantly, our neighbors in our surrounding areas have any issues. With our house, again, owner occupied, 100% supervision. Our boundaries are 3 roads and 1 neighbor that's quite a ways away. You can see our house from all 3 different sides. Our driveway, our one and only driveway, is at the entrance on Park Ave. And even though it may look like there's an opportunity to drive from Old Military, we are not permitted. We do not have a driveway in Old Military. While the application does say Airbnb for platforms that I would use, that was more of a generic thing, and I've seen it's been moving quickly. There are sites for nurses, but more importantly for me, what I'd like to do is kind of base it more on relationships with, my aunt who comes up and rents. That would be an opportunity. I want to be very quiet. This is not a wedding party house. This is not a ski and snowboard, fit as many people in house. Again, my family is right there, sleeping there. There may be concerns on the backside from neighbors on Old Military. And for that, what I would say is that what you see now, I would hope that, so from what you see now, it would actually even be more private from what you see now. I've been working hard. My neighbor may see me in the yard trying to get my property up to snuff. From comments people walking by, it's not perfect yet. People walking by, they are saying you're doing a good job of getting it going. So basically, owner occupied, the dwellings on our property is already there. I'm not taking any houses out of the housing market. I'm not buying a 4 unit, renting out a 4 unit, and being across town or in a different county. I'm on property, and when we do choose to rent, if we are given a permits, it is to keep the quality of life around us untouched. So that is where I stand, and I'm hoping to have the opportunity to get a permit and slowly roll out our SDR.
Thank you, John. I have one other question. You're gonna charge your again?
Well, we'll see, how we do that property, but it is, and in all seriousness, it is, it's to be quiet, it is not to open it up to anybody that has money. Everyone's money's green, it's not the model that I'm going
Thank you, John.
to do.
Okay, so we will open a public hearing on 333 Park Ave. Who would like to make that motion? Katie makes that motion. I will second that. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Anyone against, please raise your hand and say no. Carried. Public hearing is now open. Would anybody like to comment on? Yes, sir.
Can you recognize this guy?
This is the back side of the property,
Mhm.
from my view.
Yeah,
Which,
exactly where you live.
You're welcome. All right, my name is John Petrus. I live at 125 Old Military, which is directly out the back of the property in Muldowney. As Johnny said, the front they really don't kind of work really nice. As you can see on the back, well, first of all, we moved in 24 years ago, and one of the reasons we moved in because it's a quiet neighborhood, safe neighborhood, and all single family homes. And we really appreciate that. Another thing is that it has a dark sky. We're very lucky. We live in the village and we have dark sky. There are no houses with lights outside. People don't have houses. Fortunately, there's no street lights. Some people love those things. I don't. That's probably why I was an earth science teacher, because I like looking at the sky. So it's very dark out there. And we have a 40-foot deck, the whole width of our property. And actually, I go out every single night, winter or summer, I go out and look at the sky every night. It's dark. In our bedroom, which faces that way, which is actually faces east, I like to leave the windows uncovered. Because when the sun comes up in the morning, it comes right in my window, and I like that. Now, as I said, it's a dark sky. If you look at the back of there are two doors on the back that end up being like this high off the ground. Now, I don't know what they have intended to do with those. I assume that something has to be addressed with that. What it looks like, if you look in the plan, the floor plan, it looks like those would be the two bedrooms entering into the two bedrooms. Now, whether they want to board those up, remove them, I have no idea. But that's a concern to me. My concern is, do they want to put a deck out there? A deck with lights on each side of the door, with a stairway going down. Do they want to have a fire pit out in back? Now, if there was a fire pit out in back, their family wouldn't see it. It'd be right in my face. And that's something I'd be concerned about. People out there and, and talking, whatever, having a fire going. My wife and I like to go out in the summer often and sit on the deck and just look at the stars and the moon and the planets because it's dark there. If there were lights on the back of that where those doors are, that would really detract from what we like to do out there. My wife and I, oftentimes in the summer, on good days, we actually sleep on the deck. And it's quiet, nobody comes around, and it's dark. We enjoy that. So those are really there's some other things, but I know I got 3 minutes, and so. Okay, well, I appreciate your opportunity to let me speak, and those are some of my concerns. Maybe I'll see you again on the 18th. Have a nice day. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Yeah.
Speak to that.
Is there anybody else?
1 second.
Let's take it. Yes.
I apologize, I would have liked to be more together, but time was very limited. So I do, hi, my name is Lena, I live in Parks, Federal Military. I'm an extremely
What's your last name?
Reskowitz. I wrote it down for her,
Okay,
so I
thank
wouldn't take up my minutes. Sorry, I'm a very shy person, so I'm sorry if I haven't been as nice to meet you. Okay, so I'm gonna read my statement, I'm sorry. So my name is Elena Reskowitz. My home is at 115 Old Military Road, the residence and property directly across Old Military Road from the 333 Park Avenue. I have many differences of opinion of how the STR may affect the area at the back of the STR. Differences of opinion aside, I would like to address several discrepancies in the application. If you could pull your packets apart and put pages 2, 3, and 4 in front of you. Page 1, 2, and 3. It's the first page is the back of the house, and then I believe the second and third should be the floor plan submitted. On question 8 had several bullet points. One was exterior features to be added or changed. The applicant response possibly siding to match existing exterior. If you look at what it looks like now, there's the picture I took of the back of the proposed STRs from my driveway. There's extensive exterior work to be done. There are currently 2 doors opening out into nothing, including my concern over their misleading statement is their plan to build a patio, which would give them an elevated view onto my property. And I'm sorry, I'm a very rigid person. I really like rules, and I really like when you ask a question that you give an answer. Now if you can look at page 3 and 4, that's the floor plan that they submitted. One of the questions that you asked was, describe proposed interior changes. The applicant responded, finishes and fixtures. Yet the floor plan does not indicate a kitchen or a bathroom. How is it possible to sleep 6 without the very least a bathroom? And then my other question is square footage requirements per sleeper. They're asking to fit 6 people into this rental. Thank you for your time. When I do realize that we have until the 18th. So some of these questions could be addressed in writing. That would be really appreciated because I can't begin to address how this will affect my property or the neighborhood until I know what's going on in the back of the property where obviously something has to happen. Thank you for your time, especially Katrina. I'm sorry, and I'll be emailing a written statement to this effect. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes, Jack, you may.
okay, Mr. Peters. Hi. I've got a really good answer to your concerns. In 2021, Mr. Hayward, Guy Hayward, had plans drawn up for a deck, a very extensive deck that would intrude on your stargazing. When we purchased the house in 2022, well, we took these and said, great, we have 0 plans to go forward with what they started to do. So those 2 doors that you see, we inherit. If and when we start, a contractor will secure those 2 doors and we will do whatever is appropriate. We do not at 333 Park Ave, my wife and I and 3 kids, and whomever is going to be hired to help us if we get to that point. We are not looking to have people in the back of our property. We are not looking to have Mr. Petras and Mrs. Petras looking up going, yep, there it is. Those are the people that we don't want. We don't want any disruption from what you currently experience. We have, and I'm sure the pictures, it's probably not too pretty. We've been working from the Park Ave side down to Old Military. And yes, the back of the building has, well, it's a slant. So the front of the building is first floor. And by the time you get to the back, it's crawl space. So yeah, you're looking at a crawl space with a door off the hinges. from what we inherited. We've taken down chain link fence, we've taken down all those dog things. We've cut the lawn consistently, so we are trying to keep what we have, improve it. This drawing that was done by an architectural firm in 2021. Burn it, it's done, there's no debt going on, and those doors are either going to turn back to walls. Or following fire safety code, with a window and a chain, ladder of some sort. I've made it clear, we do not want to disrupt anything, especially on the backside of the old military.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the help a little bit.
We got no knowledge of anything, we just got strong with this thing, so sure, appreciate it.
Right? Maybe an addendum to the application or that's not.
I think there's some SCR guidelines that I will follow Ms. Lynn's guidance with.
You know, it's, let's chat after the meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else that would like to comment on the application at hand? Yes.
Casella waste is already, we already have an account with them, and they take up, bi-weekly.
Right, storing, where would you store, it? That's a state issue in the STR or guidelines, that you have to have proper storage.
The storage currently is on the front side of the cottage that you speak of, and it's in the garbage cans with the lid shut.
Thank you.
Well,
Okay, if there's no one else that would like to comment on 333 Park Ave, we will then move on to the next one. And that is an application for a special use permit, short-term rental. 159 Prospect Ave. So, yeah, they were here, but they left.
We're here.
Oh, okay, they're here. All right.
So I'm Chase Shimon, my wife, Lon Wappleton. We live 159 Prospect Ave. Thank you for being here, by the way. We want to rent out our basement it's on used space right now, other than our cats, it's their playroom. We'd rather use it for something else. I have extensive experience with rentals. I managed over 50 rentals through my company. And I've also had past experience with short-term rentals, managing them. We own our own long-term rentals, and this is just us trying to use the space below us. As a short-term rental, we're active in the community, a lot of experience in it, and our backyard is surrounded by trees, which is where they will have the tenants would have access to where the porch is, the backyard. So it's not directly accessible to the neighbors or anyone else. Yeah. Do you want to know anything else on you?
Are you gonna live in the house at the same time?
Oh, yes, we live there.
So you're
We
gonna be
yes.
owner
Yeah,
occupied?
and we have a whole network that is within 5 or less minutes away if we need somebody. If we're not there, so.
Okay. Okay, we'll open up the public hearing now then. We have a motion for a public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Tim makes that motion. Who would like to second that? Katie seconds that. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Anyone against, please raise your hand and say no. Okay. All right, so the public hearing is now open for the 159 Prospect Ave.
I wasn't aware, I do have a copy of Jason and Autumn's application, I wasn't aware that they were. I'm sorry, my name is Deb Story. I wasn't aware that they would be living in the STR. I prepared some general comments, which I'll read 3 minutes, I've read them, I hope I'm on within the time. So my name is Deb Story, and I'm here to voice my opposition to the STR application submitted for 159 Prospect. My husband and I live at 160 Prospect, directly across the street. These two houses are very close, as are many in the French Hill. I am not a proponent of STRs in residential neighborhoods. My husband and I purchased our home in 2013. We're retired and spend much of our time enjoying our home and this community. I don't relish the idea of living across the street from a steady stream of strangers any more than I imagine any of you would want to wake up every morning not knowing who your neighbors will be that day. It undermines your sense of community and security. There is an existing STR at 151 Prospect, the house next door to this application. Our other neighbors have small children and dogs. It's a residential neighborhood, or it has been. The proposed SDR was purchased 2.5 years ago from a homeowner who had lived there for 30 years for $205,000 according to Zillow. That's an entry-level home for many members of the community. By approving it as an STR, you would be effectively removing a residential property from the village. And STRs are occupied a fraction of the time and sit vacant when not rented, while residents struggle to find affordable housing. Residents are contributing members of the community as opposed to real estate investors and STR tenants. Real estate investors, people who purchase a house and convert it to an STR, are investing in real estate to serve their own financial interests. STR tenants are on vacation or attending the annual rugby tournament or some other event. Perhaps there is potential for some economic impact, but the majority of STR expenditure goes to the real estate investor. Village of Saranac Lake is amazing, truly special, and my husband and I love this community. We understand that tourism is an important component of the economy here, but Saranac Lake is fortunate to have a hospital, college, 2 colleges, really public, private schools, places for residents to work. Tourism needs to be balanced with the integrity of the community. STR investors and tenants are not part of any coordinated effort to grow the local economy. One would argue they are exploiting it. We have hotels and over 100 existing STRs to support tourism. I don't understand why we are increasing the number of STRs in the village. We're not increasing the size of the village, but we continue to dilute the residency demographic. STRs are not good for neighborhoods, they're not good for residents, and they're not good for community. There are no bad people in this situation, just people with different points of view and different interests. We personally want the village board to prioritize serving the interests of the residents of our community, the people and businesses, over those of investors and tourists. I'll conclude by saying Chase and Autumn have been good, considerate neighbors. Our objection to their STR application is in no way personal. Thank you for this opportunity to offer feedback.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I think this Jeremy Evans, Charles Street, I live in the next street over. I think this gets to the point of what I was trying to bring up earlier. It was unclear to me, and I really appreciate that Chase described more specifically what they're proposing, because in the application, it says something about whole house. Yet the floor plans look like it could be 2 units. And I know they live there. And we have a very considerate neighbor writing up something very, very thoughtful but concerning, based on the idea that it might be an investor-owned STR, which certainly can affect how people feel about things. So again, I don't want to belabor the point, but I was confused on what the proposal actually was. And it's only because the applicant is here describing that it's proposed for just the basement and that they continue to live there, from what I can tell, that I think could have been better described in the application, along with other details. And I think that, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you.
I do want to clarify, we did talk, James, I mean, I don't think you are taking off the possibility that you will rent your house as a whole house.
It would be long-term upstairs.
It would be long-term upstairs.
Yeah, it was short-term for both house.
Okay.
If we did something like that, but that's very general.
Okay, we will. Okay, thank you.
If I may, see, I
Yes,
just
you
think that all those details make a difference.
Right.
Because if, as time passes and things change and neighbors change, owners change, residents, whether long-term or short-term, change, the record of what was actually approved makes a difference. And so that, not that they would do it, but in the future, who knows, is it the upstairs unit or the bottom stairs unit that's an actual STR versus an LTR? All that stuff has to be clarified, because if it's not, it makes it very difficult for the village to enforce the rules, because you're going back in history, you can't tell what the actual approval was for.
Well, we have done that on housing units. There was one on Margaret Street. It was a 3-unit, and they wanted 2 of them. And the middle one, they were keeping for themselves. So it does get documented on how many units you have. You know, in like an apartment building where they're that way.
Is the permit, well, if it's approved, is it with that proviso that it is a resident occupied STR? So for them to change to a non-resident occupied permit, they would have to reapply for a permit, or they have a permit, and if they decide.
We haven't had anybody go from a resident to not a resident yet.
I mean, I say that only because I know Chase is a real estate, I mean, he's in real estate, so, you know, his opportunities are probably greater than the average citizen to find, you know, someplace else to go.
I have a similar question though, because I was the one who's the neighbor to the Pilatas on 19 Fox Run is where I live. And so they've applied to have a short-term rental in their basement unit. And I think as you heard, that's not going to have a significant impact on the neighborhood. If they were to decide they wanted to rent out the whole house or make it into 2 units, the upstairs and the downstairs, and that they would not be there, that would be a different impact on the neighborhood. So I think I'm following up with the same question is, are you going to be issuing a permit in the case of Fox Run and in the case of Prospect Street for the downstairs apartment? Okay.
Yes, that will be like, since they have stated that's what it is, that will be put in there as a condition. That the approval will be on 1 floor, the basement, or the lower floor, whatever you wanna call it. And that will be the unit.
Oh, just to be super clear, we did say whole house, so now you're saying you just wanna rent out the basement.
Yeah, we were.
Okay, I mean, you know, but it's very important right now with this conversation, and you can say whole house. You have that right, but whatever we say now, I have to write this into, I have to amend your application, so you say you're just saying basement. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else like public comment on the Prospect Ave short-term rental? Okay, there being nobody else, we will move up the street, I guess, to Virginia Street. So we have an application for a special use permit for a short-term rental at 18 Virginia Street. Is anybody here representing? Yes, sir. You give a little short.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Ian O'Brien. I used to live in town. Now you can see it's been a long time. I am not a full-time resident anymore. I lived here for about a decade. I still am here anywhere from 10 to 14 days out of the month. I have a property manager who is less than 5 minutes away, and then I have my personal friend who lives on Neal Street, who's gonna be cleaning the place, which is, she's just outside the 200.
Just before everyone starts to think that, you please tell them about your LLC and your 25%.
Yes, correct. Yes, we do have an LLC that fills all the requirements for doing the STO. We have all of our on-street parking. There's enough for at least 4 vehicles. Garbage will be tucked away around the side of where the garage is. We are also a fully handicap accessible place as well. With that being said, if there's any questions or concerns, I don't see any negative impact. I'm here a lot, so. Thanks.
Okay, let's open up the public hearing then. for 18 Virginia Street. Who would like to open that public hearing up? Katie will, and who would second that?
I'll second it.
Tim seconds that. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Anyone against? Please raise your hand and say no. Carries. All right, the public hearing is now open for 18 Virginia Street. Does anybody have any comments or questions? And this is the whole house.
It is, yes, and we do have future plans to dismantle the garage that is there, and obviously with code enforcement's approval, to put up a long-term rental. That'll be a little bit down the road once we get everything squared away, but, and then we would like the tenant of that place to take over doing the cleaning and general maintenance of the short-term rental.
You'll be seeing us again on that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Anybody out there? Have any comments on?
I have a question.
Yes,
You can hear me? My name is Barbara Hall, and I'm at, I guess, 195 Prospect. And I'm not quite sure I understand the difference between short-term rental and long-term rental when it's not owner occupied.
Barb, a short-term rental is anything less than 30 days.
Okay, so this is primarily for tourists or whatever that are in the area.
It's whoever the applicant wants to rent it out to less than 30 days.
All right. And the person overseeing the property is on Neal Street?
One is on Neal Street, the other one is. Oh, what is that? That's right down through Fiddlehead, or what the Fiddlehead is on?
Dorsey Street.
Dorsey, thank you, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for the comments? Okay, there being none, we will,
Like,
yes.
now, since this is, we're gonna be moving on to a minor subdivision, going forward here. I just wanna thank everybody. This is why we have the public hearing. We do have the public hearing, so questions can be addressed. So everyone has a right to have their opinion heard. And so I really do appreciate everyone being here today and having this discussion, with your neighbors. I think it helps everyone, so thank you very much.
Can I leave you with my comments or?
Yes.
I mean, I'm not going to be a minute or anything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're moving on. Okay. This,
Yes. You want somebody to take care of it. It's up here.
no, you get, almost. The one I got, well, I had the previous one I got like on Friday, stopped in the gas. And, for now that was kind of tossed to the wind. That's to fill them all out.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing much changed.
Unexpected board members fall ill today, so we have what we have right here for the board today. Katie recruits herself from the minor subdivision, so therefore we will not have a quorum, so we will not be able to vote on it today. It'll get pushed over to the meeting on the 18th with the other STRs. We had a review of the minor subdivision at last meeting, so we're just gonna go ahead and strike that from the agenda. Yes?
I tend to a free presentation if there's people here that want to hear it.
Did anybody show up?
This gentleman right there showed up, right?
Okay. Wonderful. If there are people here that showed up to hear about the subdivision, that'd be great.
Representing Tom. I would like to talk to people that have questions.
Okay, hold on, this is where it is, up here. If you wanna talk amongst yourselves, go to the water hole.
This isn't technically a public hearing of, well, you can open up the public.
You can open
hearing.
Right,
So let's go ahead and open up the public hearing and have Skip,
okay, well, we'll have Skip give a little bit of a presentation, then we'll open up the public hearing. We'll hear what the public has to say, and then we'll have a few days to digest it. We'll come back in 14 and hopefully vote on it.
Yes, I can.
No, he's just giving a presentation.
Oh, okay.
Then we will open the public hearing.
Great.
He's not really the public. He's the applicant.
This is a proposal by Tom Lockwood, he is the sole principal and chairman of Properties LLC. He lives on Turtle Pond Road, as many of you know that if you're residents there. He's in Florida right now, so I'm representing him tonight. And I helped him design this subdivision. It's a 3-lot subdivision. 3 new dwellings are proposed, one on each of the lots, as shown on the site plan. The first lot is a 1-acre lot directly on Turtle Pond Road. That's lot 1, it's 1.17 acres. There's a building envelope shown and a typical footprint of a house in the middle of the building envelope with a driveway that go up to it. The second lot is accessed from the old trail into a building location in the woods a little bit. It's a larger lot, it's lot 2, it's 12.72 acres. Originally, we had 4 lots. The wetland was gonna be 1 lot, and we were gonna give it to, or sell it or give it to the state of New York. The state of New York does not want it, so we had to revise the project to a 3-lot subdivision. And what we simply did was take the dividing line between lots 2 and 3, and put half the wetland with lot 2 and the other half with lot 3. So it's now a 3-lot subdivision. The third lot is actually accessed off of Edward Street. It's not off of Turtle Pond, so only 2 lots are accessed or in the Turtle Pond community. Each one is proposed for a new single-family dwelling. And that's the gist of the project. I guess that's my presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, let's have, open the public hearing. Who would like to make a motion to open the public hearing for the subdivision?
Can't open the public hearing because you don't have a quorum.
You're right. Because there's a vote, we would only have 2 people.
Recused.
Yeah,
You can't open a public hearing.
so there is no public hearing. You,
And I don't know if you can see it, Katrina, but somebody has their hand raised.
That was Barb who had spoken earlier against one of the, with one of the SDRs.
sir, have you gone online to look over the application?
I've looked, I've gotten this map. My question is more about the lot. I'm next to the Edward Street lot.
Yeah,
And it shows that lot drops off quite a lot. Yes, it does. Okay. My question is, it looks like they're gonna have to raise some of it. If they build it, or they're gonna have to raise up the road level. Some. There's not going to be the whole width of the lot. My question is what happens if somebody wants to raise?
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'm so sorry to interrupt. Since we can't have a public hearing, we kind of can't have a pseudo public hearing, or is that what you're saying? But you
No,
guys
I'm saying
yeah.
they'll discuss it, but it's nothing official.
it's nothing going on the record.
I'm just.
Okay.
No minutes will be taken, right?
Unfortunately,
I'd love to ask a question. If you want.
I'd be glad to answer anybody's questions tonight, either formally in front of the board or informally after. To answer your question about the Edward Street parcel, there is a small bench there, and we looked at it in the village. I looked at it with both Dustin Martin, the village water and sewer guy, and with Ally and Rick and Katrina. And we actually reduced the footprint of the dwelling and the clearing units on that lot. So it's less than the other two lots. To accommodate that, because the bench that is about 6 to 8 feet lower than the street level is not big enough to accommodate anything much bigger than that. If anybody, and I've talked to the village about this, if anybody wants to change that, they're gonna have to come back in, and I think this eventually would be the condition of any approval with a grading plan for development of that lot beyond what is shown on the lot.
My concern, it sounds silly, but my concern is just water. Water runs down off the hill, runs into the end of my driveway. I have a small grade that goes out into the lower area. The village has a storm drain across the street from the end of my driveway that actually dumps out, just straight across and dumps out into there. And if somebody were to fill that in, then all the water would end up in my front yard, because there's no other place for it to go.
Well,
I understand, like so many things, been there for 3 years, and the water doesn't keep coming back.
Yeah. As it's laid out now, the water would mostly drain downhill towards the wetland.
Right.
And any change to that from what is proposed would have to come back in front of the board, is my
I
understanding.
don't oppose the house. I just want you to know that, it's just I'm just doing concern about it. Being silly, right?
No,
I have the same question, so you're okay.
Yeah.
The stormwater is my number one question, because we also have a low point. So the two pieces of property, you have the back sides, the low point is actually on our property, and I wanted to know what the stormwater drainage plan was on the two lots.
All of that water will drain again down towards Turtle Pond and down the wetland. Everything, they're both on high points on the property, and the property drain slopes down towards the wetlands in both cases. In the case of the first, really all I can say is it's going to drain down.
Right, so downhill on the other side is my property. That's why I'm asking, because if you build on the high points of both these hills and you remove the trees and the structure there, I just want to know what the plan is, because there's a backside to what you're saying is the high point.
Where do you live?
We're here.
You're up on Edward Street. You're on Edward.
Yeah, we come off, well,
Everything's
Cortez.
gonna drain.
I'm not on Edwards, we come off of Cortez Lane. So I am the piece of property that backs both of your first two lots.
Everything is gonna drain away from you.
So you're gonna build lower on the Turtle Pond side for both of those lots, you won't be on the highway, you'd be in the hill towards Turtle Pond.
Yeah, pretty much. That's where those building envelopes are shown.
So my other question is.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. As this is no longer official business of this meeting, if you guys would like to further talk about it, we will just ask that you can use the hallway, or I can give you guys room to sit down and talk right now, but we do need to move on with our agenda. Did you want me to give you a place to sit?
No, I just wait till the next meeting.
Well, you have him right now here to ask your questions. It's just, we need to move on with our agenda. So I'm happy to open up a room for you guys to sit, if you'd like.
No, I'm good, I'm here.
And Katrina,
What was the date of the next?
It'll be on the 18th.
Okay, and then we'll be able to ask our question.
You can ask your questions. I'm saying this is an unofficial business we don't have a forum, so it's not a part of our meeting anymore.
I'm sorry.
So you're welcome to, it's all fine.
we'll be opening up public comment at the next meeting essentially.
I'm confused.
Sorry,
Okay, the
okay.
18th, the 14th February,
18.
and we'll give a letter again?
Yeah.
Okay.
And at that point, we'll open up for public comment to address the board officially and.
Yeah, story tonight,
No, oh, good, I just.
members just came down sick or had to work or something, and unfortunately Katie has to recuse herself because she has a connection to this, so.
She's got skin in the game.
No, I'm just kidding.
Got a question.
Small towns, you know a lot of people.
So long, I'm gonna leave anyway, so I'll wait till.
Thank you.
Anybody else? That you have a-
Thanks, Deb.
Okay, wow.
Sorry to be.
What happened?
Really get a number to us, Katie, way to go.
Just kidding. Thanks, Katie.
Jeez.
All right, we gotta keep moving on here. Till we get home. I lost my other sheet, but. Do we have, let's move on to, is it new business? Which is more about the short-term rentals. And it regards a memo from the Board of Trustees. Did you wanna, what?
I can read along here. I'm thankful that Aurora was able to show up. Matt had something also that came up, so he wasn't able to make it. It was helpful to sit through and listen to the STR applicants tonight, because I think some of the things that the village board has seen, and we're looking to address with an amendment. Address some of these tonight. I will just quickly read what I had is just sort of a quick summary. I wasn't sure what you guys received. Did you receive a copy of the? Yep, okay, awesome. So at our January 27th meeting, the board discussed proposed changes. And next step is to bring it to the development board for your input. So the amendment aims to accomplish two things, two key objectives. One is clarifying exemptions to the STR permit cap. The current law allows exemptions for special circumstances like new construction or rehab of derelict buildings. The proposed amendment seeks to more clearly define what those are. The other one is exempt owner-occupied STRs from the permit cap. We've seen that, and we've received, I think all of us more individually have received feedback and requests from property owners who live on site and want to rent out a portion of their home. That's something that I think was just discussed at great length when we were drafting the STR law, and wasn't addressed then. So it's kind of just looking to rectify that and make sure that it's addressed clearly. The amendment would exempt owner-occupied short-term rentals from the cap. It supports neighborhood stability, reduces absentee ownership issues, helps homeowners offset costs of taxes, mortgages, maintenance, that type of thing. It's something that we've seen and we've heard that has happened for generations. I think, Ally, you had a great example that you mentioned in your childhood home, your parents renting out a room. That kind of idea that people maybe would leave for the week of Ironman and rent out their house, or they rent out a property for a week in the summer when they go to camp, and it kind of just helps offset their taxes. And it's something that kind of has happened here, and it was something that people were concerned would be taken away from them with the STRs, that ability to do that. So kind of making sure that if they live there, like Johnny's example of making an apartment in his garage and having that as a source of revenue, but being there and knowing that he wants the character of the neighborhood to stay the same. And, you know, he lives there and his children are there. And so he has that level of ownership and sort of promoting responsible home sharing without contributing to the oversaturation of investment owned STRs. So, yeah, I'm just looking for some development board input on those two things at this point. I think we realize with the STR law, it's a year under our belt now, that it's something that we want to revisit at least annually and take a look and see if things are working, if there's something we missed, if something needs to be addressed. We don't want to make amendments to a law willy-nilly, so kind of just using it as a year-end sort of like look back at how the first year of implementation has gone and just what needs to be course correct to make it just a more solid law moving forward.
Okay. Well, for myself, I read it over and. Yeah, one thing is on. The exemptions, you know. For new construction, addition and repair. They actually seem to lean, in my opinion, a lot to helping an investor move ahead. So I was a little curious
Yeah.
on that it seemed like more. On the owner occupied, one thing that came out was they only have to live there, really, it says 183 days. So they,
That's a state.
residency.
Yeah, 184 days is the state definition, so you could do like 184, you know, less than or more than or equal to, but it's just easier to say more than 183.
Yeah.
It's a.
How do you expect that we regulate that amount of days? Like, is that in that, like, have you given that any thought?
Their
Are we
taxes,
writing a test?
their taxes, their driver's license.
But the actual 183 or 84 days, like, there's no
Right,
way.
no,
Yeah.
that's more just figures into definition, right?
You know,
Those, so that's the definition of a state, that's your, where you reside for the state.
yeah.
So you should be filing your taxes from that address, because that's required, and then you should also have your license registered at that address.
But it is a copy or, is it driver's license or voter registration?
Yeah, either one of those things,
Okay.
that's your where you reside.
So I just, it appeared to me like those people could be owners, but they could be gone for almost half the year. And not even be around and rent it all summer or all winter. So that was there. And when I read back about, you know, the intent of the SDR law, it seems like when you were having caps, because it says there's no caps
For the
owner
owner.
occupied, that seems like we're opening it wide open all of a sudden. And you saw tonight that there's still a lot of people out there that question these. So
Yeah.
my feeling is that we should still do caps. And I was wondering why, like, on the report there, I got it somewhere here. That was done, the short-term rental report. And in here, it gives somewhere there's a chart that says what the percentage is per district. Like in A2, there is 51 properties for short-term rentals for a 7.8%. Why don't we pick a percent for each district that we like? You know, so and then when that district gets up to that percent, it gets no more. And then also have the 10 cap. So that like, okay, we're gonna have 10. We look on our chart here and we look and the lowest percent is in F2, where there's only 2%. So we would give one of those rentals to F2. Then we look for the next lowest one, I don't know what's it, 2.5, in J1, we would give one there. And we would give them out until the 10 were gone. But you have to first come up with a percent. Now,
We did talk about, do we do percent or a set number? And we thought administratively, doing a set number is easier than trying to decide on a percent.
but,
But it's sort of,
but this would, you know, kind of keep it balanced, so one district wasn't getting all of them. And the one that had the least, if someone wants to, you know, especially if these people want to do additions and go through that, they could, of course, that's another thing, but I guess back to the homeowner occupied. I just think setting a hard cap of say 10, like, and then going down here and putting it into the last one. you wouldn't necessarily go up to B2 where there's already 50% saturation.
Right.
So you would be hitting the ones that have the least percent
Mhm.
and numbering it that there's only gonna be 10 this year anyways.
Are you saying, doing a cap for owner occupied separate from exemption caps?
Correct, because I look at exemptions as being, they're on their own.
Yep.
And you could put a cap on exemptions too, so you gotta, we're only doing 5 exemptions this year.
Right,
We're
yep,
only doing 10 new ones for owner occupancy. And that would be dealt out in the lottery, which basically is like whoever has the least percentage, it's like whoever has the least wins in football gets
yeah,
the first draft. And so on.
yep,
And if say there was one and it didn't get used, it could be moved up, you know what I mean? So if no one came in to put one in, and there was one in F2. We could move it to a different one that wasn't at that percent.
mhm,
But first you gotta say, is 5% too much, too little? I mean, when we look at the total number, there's 1,527. So if you did 10%, that would be 152, right? That seems like a lot, doesn't it? I mean,
right,
so I don't know if 5 is too low,
right.
are we at, is 8 a good number, 8%?
I think, right, and this is a good discussion to have. I think this is what we kind of did. It's like, yeah, what is the right number? And it's hard, and I think that's why revisiting it is going to be important.
But I think that's why opening the floodgates just after a
Yeah.
year is too early. Maybe in 2 or 3 years or so. You might wanna change it after you see what the flow really is.
Right, yeah.
Or the impact, but
Has the village board been approached by people that wanna do an addition over their garage? I mean, what prompted this language?
For the owner occupied?
no,
Or
Well, no, it says delete the exemption, it says add, new construction, the construction of new buildings that include one dwelling, you know, the apartment or the garage. Has the board been approached by people that say, geez, I'd love to do this project, but I couldn't rent it as an STR, so I can afford it, or?
No, and I don't know exactly if I can look, what are you looking at?
We're
Where
trying to-
we, got rid of.
So you want to delete this?
Delete
I mean,
what?
But then these criteria, you want to change, amend it to read this.
Yes, to give more clarity to this, but then one of these got scrapped, it was like number 3. Was just like, let's do. Away with that, I believe,
It was the substantial.
it's a substantial,
It
okay,
was
so
a
that was already, okay. Yeah, the idea of.
We just didn't know if in a work session it had come up that there are members of the public who gave you the letter.
When we were talking about the cap, it was brought up at the village meeting, that this statement was not necessarily as precise
General concept.
as it needed to be.
It's kind of,
And then Matt McCarthy had also recommended that we solidify that language if we plan on putting forward. So that's where the exemptions became more detailed,
right, didn't it?
separate from the owner occupied.
It came though from where the law states special circumstances.
yeah,
Such as construction and rehabilitation
Mhm.
of a derelict or dilapidated building. So the special circumstances such as left it wide open. So in reaction to that, they tried to get criteria so that if someone came for an exemption, it wasn't just all over the board. It had to be what we see it, what you're trying to add.
But your
So-
concern is that if an owner occupied space is exempt, it's still sort of a.
Well, that's a whole
There's no
different,
guardrails to it, essentially, is the concern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to-
yeah, yeah. That's what. You know, owner occupied is the best way to go, but do we want every resident in the town to be owner occupied STR?
My other question was, it's void if moving forward, so I sell real estate, right? Someone has an owner occupied space, they're gonna sell their house. Obviously, they're not gonna use the income revenue as a, justification of their home value, but is the new owner who buys the house gonna be able to say, I'm gonna pay my taxes here, it's my primary residence, I'm gonna be here 250 days out of the year, and I wanna apply for a vacation rental. Is it that property done forever?
Right, it doesn't carry with the property, so they would have to
So I understand
reapply,
that.
yes. so
They
they'd
have
to-
the right to reapply.
Yes, they would have.
They-
Whoever owns it, the short-term rental permit follows the owner, not the property. So if the day that they sell it, their short-term rental property, their short-term rental permit.
Good job.
Is that, you know, that is.
But the new owner is not declined the opportunity to say, this is my primary residence.
Right.
And I would like to do.
Right, even
And they would have to-
accepting owner occupied from the cap, they still have to go through the permitting process.
Yeah, they still have to go through this whole process.
They're exempt from the cap.
Correct.
Yes, yes.
Right, so
It's-
it's a continuous process, so there,
Doesn't technically, legally it doesn't continue, but in theory, the property could continue on under the same use.
Yeah.
because the concern is like, you have built a restaurant and now the new owners can never run it as a restaurant again, it's like, how do I sell that, right, or how does the next
Well, I'm
time?
not talking about how to sell.
No, I know, but I'm just saying in general, right, like in function, it was established as like a 2 residence building. But now,
Basically,
like, if they can't renew, it's like, I'm kind of stuck with this, or I have to remodel.
Or they do a long-term rental.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
The seller could say, hey, look, you can't have this permit any longer, but you can apply for your own, and I was getting 35,000 a year of.
Yeah.
extra revenue
yeah.
To help offset expenses.
And yeah, it's a question, and maybe it's just how this evolved over time. A month or two ago, we had gone and all sat together and the 10 was established of new applications. You saw that 4 of the 5 here today were owner occupied. So is this just an evolution of where we are? Why are we restricting it to 10? And that was a very important thing to do, but now it's unlimited owner occupied. Like, what changed?
A lot of the exemptions that came to us were owner occupied exemptions. And really for you don't want the exemption to be the rule, right?
But I mean, the 10 that were allowed, not the exemptions, but the 10 that were allowed, I mean, that wasn't the exemptions. That was all, 5 of them were the people that you saw here today. Why the 10 new ones without exemptions? But now unlimited owner occupied.
I think it only makes sense, yeah, that 10 having a cap after having a year-long moratorium, no new permits, just the pre-existing, and then opening it up with a cap of 10 seemed like the best number to choose. I think for me, having worked on drafting the STR law, I thought owner occupied we always knew it needed to be addressed. Some previous board members did. There was a disagreement part with it where I think if I have, like the people that we hear today, if I have a basement apartment and I want to rent it, I should be able to rent it, right? I don't know. I feel like if I'm living on site and it's I don't know.
Well, you can rent it long term,
Yes.
no
yeah,
problem.
Yep.
The thing is, and if you read your intent though of the law, it kind of states that you're looking for a balance and you don't want to change the neighborhood.
Right.
And a lot of people feel that short-term rentals change the
Yeah.
neighborhood.
But the
So-
short-term rentals that are least impactful are the ones that are owner occupied.
Yeah.
And people, it shows that data has shown that owner occupied STRs are less of a problem.
I would go with them every day.
Yeah.
I totally agree. There's no question there. But you're assuming they're gonna be there.
Yeah.
When they can not be there for half a year. If you lived at somebody next door and half the year they were great. And the other half they really were
Right.
bad, that would drive me more than crazy than having them bad all the time.
Right, yep.
So-
But you're letting you're also letting those people into your home at that point. And so one thought on that would be, so I just got back from a conference down in Albany. The legislative conference down there for NICOM, and there's actually some new laws coming down for STR. And that will impact us. They just have to go through the amendment phase of this session. And so we have a chance to talk a lot about what other people are doing with STRs and how to accommodate. And essentially, there has to be a registry, all short-term rentals have to be registered. And, all the platforms will have to report to the county every 90 days, how many days that rental is occupied. Or, you know, paid for. And then also, there is not only a penalty for the host if they're not permitted, but there is also a penalty for the platform. And that there's a lot of other changes coming, but essentially, like one of the examples from Glens Falls was that they assigned a different, STR density, if you will, to the lake. Because they had a lot of people who owned homes on the lake, who the only way they afforded their homes was they rented it out for like a month of the summer. And it was the same family that was coming back every summer. So it wasn't like a transient population or anything like that, or someone just coming for a couple days. And so I think in Saranac Lake, we also have those situations where the owner is not looking to make that their primary business. They're looking to supplement their income to help pay for taxes and being able to keep that home. And
that's the.
I like that, and I think owner occupied,
I think, right,
I just-
But the idea that it's just gonna be a basement, or it's just gonna be a weekend here or weekend there. When they have the permit, they're gonna have the permit. So, you know, if they could do the whole house, you know, there's nothing restricting them for just having a basement apartment, or just doing a weekend here or a weekend there. So, when we say owner occupied, and I do think I understand where you're like, oh, you just wanna rent this out a little bit, or do whatever. There's nothing to recluse them to just do that little bit. They will have a permit, they can do it out.
But not right now, even the residency requirement that we have, anybody, and some applicants tonight might just go and change their voter registration to be a home that we know they don't live in. So, you know, what are you gonna do about that? I don't know. You
Yeah,
can't
we
fix it.
can't, no.
I mean, you really
you
can't.
can't go,
Some of
or
it
count
is
the
like-
days and.
We want them to be
Well,
owner occupied, we could remove like the number of days, but it's a state definition. So I don't know, I like what you said, Ally, like capping the number of owner occupied, but I guess because to me, it's like the intent's there. I think it's probably easier to cap the number of owner occupied. But having them go through the process, you could put it through a different lens of scrutiny when you hear someone that, you know, their kids are enrolled in school, they're gonna be here at least 9 months out of the year, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know how else to really do it, but other than, yeah.
It's something to think about, because there is no way for us to sit here and say, okay, you can have one, but you can't. So you said, you know, you have these little kids, and you're gonna take, you know, you're gonna be watching, but this other person said, well, I don't have little kids, and, you know, everyone is still has a right to apply for the STR. And I don't think we're gonna sit here at the development board and go, okay, well, there's no criteria there to say you can have one and you can't, other than like the whole idea that like. The
Well,
whole basement
other
thing
than
or
the
a house.
criteria being owner occupied. Yeah.
Like that's it. It's not because they're nice people or anything else, when they come and they apply.
Well, they have to,
And I-
it's not an automatic pass, it's not like if
You
you're.
don't have to get my kids,
You're-
but
Oh, okay.
yes, I'm sorry, thank you.
Well, thank you for your input.
Now,
Yes,
I want to talk
yes.
this through more, because it's really, the goal is just to tighten it up. Any of those like gray areas of like,
Kelly, real
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
It doesn't go beyond a duplex. Like if I have a 3-unit,
No.
it's like, I just wanna make sure I'm reading it properly, like that's what it says. So if I live in a 3-unit place, I rent one long term, I occupy one. Okay, it's changed to 4. You see what I'm saying?
Yes,
So,
right.
but however it is, you're saying that it can't be more, the dwelling can't be more than a 2-unit dwelling. is
Because,
what you're saying.
yeah, we kind of talked that through as the board too, like if somebody had an apartment building with 10 units.
Well, there are some people that have a multi-unit, they
Yeah.
want 1 or 2 long term, they would.
And it's kind of, so they live in one.
So if you have 3 or more units, you're not in this exemption, even though you live at the building?
That's what we put, but again, that's something.
You
to
would
think
be
through.
exempt
Yeah.
up to, so you would be exempt for 1 unit.
in the building. Okay, because the way I read that was that the building, the property couldn't exceed.
Because we didn't want,
Because it says including the primary.
Yeah, so my question was, when that primary person goes away, now does that become a 2-unit STR? Versus 1
no, you're only approving one,
unit, so they can't live
and it's
in
not,
their residential unit,
they
right?
can't reassign
Right.
the permit, so.
Right, but I mean, well, I wasn't sure if they were getting it as a home
Okay, so. it
and
says-
not saying it's the
But
basement.
it says, located in the same parcel as a dwelling unit used as a primary residence with the homeowner, gotcha. Not to exceed 2 units, including the primary residence of the owner and the location where the taxes are filed. So
Yeah, so that would be what, so in the case of like John, where he has his house and
Yeah.
there's 1 unit, he could do that.
But what about in the case where I live in a 3-unit, I occupy 1 and there's 2?
You can't have 2 short-term rentals.
No,
You
but
can
I can
have
still have.
1 unit on that.
No, it's 3, not, that just reads.
It is confusing. Yeah, any suggestions on how to make that work?
Yeah. I get what you're
Because
saying.
we didn't want a commercial person
Right.
to be able to take units off, to take their whole complex off the market because they now can do short-term rentals because they live in one of the units.
I just
So
want to make
that's-
sure that someone is, go ahead, let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, yeah,
I just
you're
want to
on
make
line.
sure that I understood properly.
So yeah, we talked about like the,
One, you can rent one.
yeah, like the gentleman who came and he had, I think he had a 4 units at a building and he rented, he lived in one of them, he rented the others to low income. And then and he was asking to be able to make some of that money back to be able to accommodate the lower rents that he's charging.
And he would be filing under this exemption as a.
He could, if he's living at the address, then he could, but only for one of
I
those.
got you, yep, I'm with you 100%.
Because we didn't want to like, we wanted to make sure to restrict it to 1 unit, we're not taking a whole apartment building off the.
My
Out
other
of
question was
the inventory.
if the ownership was limited to 2 units.
Yeah. And we also said this, so we were looking to get a positive determination so that we could move forward with this, and get it not done quickly, but in a more timely manner, because it does take up a lot of processing time and everything, but we did send it to, I believe, I'm not sure if Katrina, you sent it to Matt McCardle or if Jimmy did. But we sent it to both you guys for input and Matt McCardle at the same time. So if he has a problem, so that's the language that we came up with, but if he doesn't, if he says it would be better worded this way, then, you know, he could make that recommendation too, but that was the intent, was that, you know, if they're bringing a whole house onto the, like, if they're restoring a cure cottage and they have a number of apartments and maybe they need one of them to be an STR to recoup the.
Yep, thank you.
You know,
But I just want to clarify, I think I got it. If I was like one of the applicants tonight and I have a house and I'm gonna rent, basically my downstairs is a basement, but it's finished.
uh-huh.
And then I go to Florida in the winter. Can I rent my part out?
No.
How I approach it, so we have to make sure.
A full house is still 1 unit.
Yes, no, I'm saying if they came and said, okay, I'm owner occupied, I live here, I wanna rent my house out. I'm gonna go to wait some time, I'm gonna rent the whole house.
But they should be spent, when they go through your process. So the only thing that gets them is that they're not capped, that it's not like you automatically are not gonna get it because you already have 8 units in that district. They still have to go through the full process to get approved. So they still have to hit all your points that you guys talked about tonight. It's just, yes, you can go through the process and there's the potential that the development board will grant you an STR permit.
So in that application, we should specify that you are getting a 1 unit SDR in your home, and it is this floor, and bedrooms, and
Because that's different, right? So like the couple that was here that had the full house rental. I would not, I would, quite honestly, I would have them redo their application. Because on that application that they're filling out, they're attesting to what they're asking for. So right now, they're asking for a full house rental, but if they're getting approved based on the fact that they live there and they're just wanting to rent the basement, then that should be on there.
So you can change that by how many bedrooms, and how many persons you're renting your space.
And it may have been just like a misunderstanding or whatever, but it would be, when you approve the permit, it would be basement apartment. So they can't then switch.
Right, can't switch.
Switch, they get this, whatever they ask for is what gets permitted, but why
Right.
would you wouldn't necessarily decline an applicant just because they ask for the whole house. Like, you know, there's nothing to.
No,
tell them
correct.
to do that, there's nothing.
No.
What? If I was me, you just ask for your whole house.
So
And
yeah.
you move on.
I think the difference would be it wouldn't fall under an exemption, it would have to fall under the cap then.
No, because there are gonna be no
Because
caps.
it's days of the year, it's not based on like
only
cool.
There is no cap.
Like, you don't have to- you have, if that's really what we're going for here, it has to be like something like, you have to be home when your house is being rented. Otherwise,
No, because some people, that's what they use it for. They go on
Right.
vacation for 2 weeks and they're renting their house out for 2 weeks.
right,
And so they're not there, but you're letting someone live in your space, and that's why it's a higher caliber of person staying in your.
but there's no way.
It's a little bit more vetted by
You
the
don't
owner.
need it finding people just because they say.
No,
No, they don't have to have a separate
So like I
unit
said,
to rent.
Still, I agree with having some kind of cap or restriction there, because it really does open up. For
But
a
if you-
lot of different
but you can see how far it went with the stress that was in the room for people who wanted to rent their whole house versus the basement. It does change, it could change the characteristic of the neighborhood. That would be, you guys judge that, right? It could also change, it could also be a burden because of the party house noise, whatever.
You know,
Those
the
restrictions
problem
you
here
guys
is-
have to decide on.
It's really who you rent to. Are they good people of goodwill, or are they people just up here to party? So that's the hard thing to tell. I mean, you could get 1 week the greatest people you'd like to, have them move into the neighborhood. The next week, you could get just troublemakers and you go, I didn't.
Well, and if
So
the
how-
owner is
and
not
that's the,
on a general, regardless of caps, exemptions, everything else, if they are granted an STR permit. And the village is getting complaints or having to enforce things there, the next time their permit comes up, it's gonna be revoked. And then also I think it says I haven't studied it all, but I think it says it can be revoked if you don't abide by these things. So, I mean.
but how many complaints have we ever gotten?
You get a few.
You
here
don't,
and
it
there.
doesn't seem like
We
there's
try to-
as many as you hear when you hear people talk about how it can be so bad.
It's not, none of this is going to address what their major concerns are. They just don't like the STRs. So it doesn't, they just don't feel comfortable with them. And this is just going to open up a lot more of those. And when, like I said, they go for a full house rental, and we're like, okay, it's not gonna matter that's gonna be upsetting to the neighbors.
And
It
we
can be a lot.
don't believe it's going to open up the floodgates are gonna open up,
Mhm.
right? We don't believe that at all. Existing short-term rentals have, I shouldn't say that, I don't believe that at all, and some of the other board members didn't believe that. But I can't speak for all of them. But we've had, I believe in total requesting exemptions, there were 6 people. And the circumstances, a number of them were financial hardship. And the intent of an exemption is hopefully you have fewer exemptions, right? You have a limited number of exemptions. And because of the history of the discussion with allowing owner occupied short-term rentals, that's where that came in. And then also it would greatly reduce the number of people who are asking for an exemption. So that the exemption would really be applied to people who are truly adding inventory to our tax base or our density.
Right.
As opposed to please prove to us that you're having a financial hardship. By whose definition?
Yeah.
So,
I don't want to speak for anybody else on the board. I would appreciate there being some kind of limit on the owner occupied. If you don't think it's gonna be a lot of people, then it shouldn't really matter.
well, we talked about it. We can question what ifs all day, right? And if we do it and we see that it's a problem, then we can dial it back. Just like, you know, we don't really know until we have the data. I will say, one of the things that is happening with the short-term rental law that's statewide is that we will actually have data every 90 days for how many people stayed in those properties. So if a rental platform like Airbnb or any of those platforms report that a house is being rented 200 something days a year, you know the person's not leaving there for 184 days. And their owner occupied short-term rental doesn't get renewed the next year. You know, and that's data that we will no longer have to pay for. And we will have to issue permit numbers for registration numbers for all of our short-term rentals, because the platforms won't actually be able to rent it unless you give them your registration number and they verify that you're registered as short-term rental. Otherwise, they get dinged $500 for the listing.
We do have permit numbers.
So they'll have to, I don't know how there has to be a way for them to check. So I don't know how that's gonna work. But, you know, there's a penalty on both the listing platform and the owner when that happens. So, and there's also some checks in there to make sure like occupancy tax is being collected and everything else.
Are we gonna do away with the 10?
The what?
The limit of 10 for the year?
No,
I just find them contradicting themselves. To say 10 and they can only be in, like 10 was a very important number. We wanted to limit the amount that's.
they did it based on it. So the percentage doesn't actually work because the densities of the zones are different. So if you say 10% and you're looking at a neighborhood that are very tightly knit and has a ton of property, that's more units. But if you're looking at a neighborhood with 2 houses and they're very far apart, well, that person can't have one because they don't even have, that would be 50%. So you can't, in a zone, unless there's 10 residential properties, you can't even have one STR. So that's, so, and it's like counting people too. You don't have 0.78 of a person. You have one person.
But I
So,
Most of those ones that are so lower, commercial zones that have the hotels in them and things like that.
Look at which ones in the zone.
the 10, yes, the 10 has already passed. That's, so the only way to get rid of that is to do a resolution to reverse it.
I just don't see the point in both of those, you know,
The owner occupied and the,
and the 10. So now, you know, now I guess you're saying, so the owner occupied now gets taken out of the 10, they can do whatever, they can apply as it,
Yes.
they're not beholden to the restrictions. So we're really now.
to the count, they're not to the count.
So now all we're doing with the count is saying, okay, if you're a village resident and this is not your, I mean, it applies to a very small number of people. It seems like a policy.
And you still have to,
Lawsuit because someone says, you know, you're discriminating against me because I'm not here 183 plus days of the year.
no, there wouldn't be. I mean, this is local law, it's our local law, so we can,
Discriminate may not be the right word, but you're being biased to me because I can't be, you know, I get to follow these same rules, but if someone lives there, they're guaranteed a permit, where me as.
they're not guaranteed a permit.
They're guaranteed the opportunity.
Yes.
To get one.
Yes,
But I think Lake Placid went through a similar situation where a bunch of people that were non-residents tried to sue the village or the town, I forget which, because they felt that they were being selected against for not being year-round residents. They were being denied their due process for a permit.
so that could potentially be an issue with our existing law. The owner occupied doesn't do it, the resident is a different issue.
Okay.
So we're applying a cap to the, to, STRs for anybody who doesn't live here, but from what I've heard, the issue is that you're saying you can't buy this property and do a short-term rental because you don't live in the village. And that's the discrimination, if you will. So if somebody over in North Elba wants to buy a property here and do a short-term rental, they can't.
I was thinking more of the person who grew up here, moved away, lives somewhere else, they bought a home, they come here. 90 days out of the year, they wanna rent it, but they can't because the cap has been built and they're not exempt, because they're not a year-round rental.
That's true, they would have to wait for us to raise the cap or something else, or they could do a long-term rental.
Yeah, they all know that they can do long-term.
But remember that.
They know they don't want it.
So something else we had talked about is the definition of a short-term rental is less than 30 days. So you rent your house for 31 days and you are no longer a short-term rental. It's a very fine line. You don't tell people that they have to stay in your house for 31 days. They just have to rent it for 31 days. So somebody who's out of the country could still long-term rent their home when they're gone. And if it's not their residence, they wouldn't be able to run a short-term rental out of it. And well, unless they were under the cap, you know, or that year we raised the cap in their area that they applied. But
So basically, we're gonna have 3 ways to get a permit. You're gonna have owner occupied. You're gonna have, apply for one of the 10 under the cap.
That's if it's your second home in the village, to go on outside, doesn't have to. So those are for that specific group of people,
Right, and then there's the exemption.
non-residents.
and the exemption, they have to bring inventory into the village. So that's a home that is not being occupied currently. That's our abandoned properties or new construction. They're adding to our inventory of housing. So that's kind of what the exemption.
It's for add housing.
Yeah.
To help.
Because we would rather have someone restore an abandoned building than not, because they're not gonna make their money back. So I think they were just, the board just was hoping for a positive determination or input tonight, but you guys are missing a lot of people. So if you guys can just put it on the agenda for the 18th. Or if you wanted to do it through email recommendations or whatever, and then we're also working with Matt Ricardo on his viewpoint on the 2 separate things, on the exemption definitions, and then also on the owner occupied.
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
Earlier you said on the owner occupied, if it has no cap, you just said, well, we'll keep it in check. What does that process look like? Like, how do you?
We would have to change the law. So like a moratorium or something else, we would have to change the law.
Right, so.
Just like.
So does that leave us vulnerable then? In a situation of you denied a permit because it's just getting out of hand in that village of the eyes of the village, that now we have too many unoccupied, like. Or like while you wait for that process, or do you have to approve everything if they hit the criteria? Until the law gets amended?
You would have to take the law through the process before you.
Once the Secretary of State,
I'm just poking things, just when you say keep it in check, it's just like.
Because that would be, it's just like our STRs now.
Yeah, right, I'm not saying one way or the other, is that a vulnerability, or is that just
That's
like,
the way-
you can
that's
find that in any law, like it's the
That's
situation,
government.
yeah.
You can't apply it
Right.
until it's law. So that would be discrimination.
Yeah, right.
Or, you know, maybe a violation.
The alternative is
That's how it's done.
relatively arbitrary number at this stage to say this is our cap for the time being on owner occupied.
Yeah, because right now, without the data, it is all kind of arbitrary.
Right, I understand that, yeah. Both boards are looking at each other and going, we need rules to make a decision, what are the rules, and it's like, this gets really complicated really quickly.
Yeah.
You know, like, I think tonight, anecdotally, we saw the tone shift immediately with owner occupied. I think people came in on heavy, we received letters, and the minute they realized it was just like an application or a misunderstanding, I think it immediately was like a big exhale. So I do agree that we saw it even tonight, that I'm in support of understanding or seeing that, and we just saw it tonight, that owner occupied definitely is a relief, I think.
Yeah.
The public, I think the concern would be, and maybe where we do it in the application process, is really defining what the intent is of the scale of the property, because I think we also, like, that's just played into it, like, owner occupied few, oh, it's just their basement few, like, that makes me feel better, and I think that just like played itself out tonight, so really capturing that and then being clear so we know, so it's like, with what I think what I'm hearing from you is, okay, outside of the 183 days, every weekend I can leave my house and it can be a party house every single weekend, and I'm out, and then the neighbors are like, oh, shoot. Yeah, yeah.
You know, that, it could, what they think in their mind is, this person's gonna be around when this house. is ready.
Right, I'm thinking spatially defining it, there's a difference of like, oh, it's just our basement, like, we're older, we're sick, and we're here all the time, like, that perceives differently for a neighbor than like, oh, it's owner occupied, but like, this could be a party house over the weekend, like, I'll just stay across town there. Yeah.
That people are around, you know, after.
That could be the case for any bar.
Correct.
Totally, I'm just saying.
But if they're being neglected, then those permits should be pulled.
Yeah, right.
But somebody has to report that, and a lot of times people might complain about their neighbors, but they don't go and appropriately make a complaint, you know, either with the police department or down here to the village clerk, and, you know.
It would
Yeah.
depend what the complaint was, right? If it was an actual, something criminal.
Yeah, I mean, they go downtown and they'll complain to their, oh, your shop, oh yeah, they were noisier than that, but they don't call the police when it's going on, and. You know, so.
I agree though, I think owner occupied gives this false sense of security to people. Most of the people are going to abide, they're gonna be in the sector that we all kind of think that it is. But if somebody's allowed to be gone for 180 days a year, and you don't have to be there when it's being rented out. You know, all of a sudden people are gonna go, well, I thought this was owner occupied, where are you? You know, what do you mean, you're never here? You know, they can still fit that definition and be an STR. STRs are gonna be a little bit noisier, they're gonna have increased traffic, they're gonna be all these things, and for us to assume that they're not. You know, that it's just gonna be like this mom and pop showing up, I mean, that's just not what it is. First of all.
People who owner occupied short-term rentals. I don't know a good way to say this, like, they're. It's not necessarily that you think they're gonna be there all the time, but like they're paying closer attention to who they're letting in their home because they live there as well.
Yeah.
So it's more, you're gonna be more.
And I think you'll weed them out quicker, like you won't have them come back.
Yeah, Johnny said it. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. And I know where you're coming from, I agree, like, I'm not gonna rent my house out and go, cool, that's my bed, I sleep in as well, like, hopefully, like, you know, whatever, like, oh, cool, like, I also, you know, have to cook in that kitchen, thanks for ruining, you know, like, so you definitely are filtering more, so I understand where you're going, it's a.
Well, a lot of them that have real bedrooms.
Yeah, right.
They lock that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that room is where they keep all the good stuff.
That is my
It's
recipe.
locked, you don't get that.
It's a closet.
Yeah.
So no, I know where you're coming from. It's definitely a little bit of a different context, but yeah. Yeah, I think the intent of some of the new build and, you know, like you said, I think Johnny was a good example of. I don't want to stifle it in that instance where he's using what was already a space somewhat used by a tenant, it sounded like vaguely. And it's only for improvements, like that's great. It's an existing structure, it's improving it. Like, I feel like the neighbors were immediately like, oh, this is kind of good news now that I'm processing this a little bit, that he's gonna fix it up. So I think those initiatives are perfect, you know?
And he had a big, I think, trouble.
Yeah.
I hope that's all that will be here.
Right.
Because someone could also come here and say, I'm not fixing it up, I don't have to, it's fine the way that it is.
Right,
You know,
right.
I thought of all this criteria, it's nice, it's great when you have the
Yeah.
great story that we're looking for. And maybe it won't be every application, and maybe this will be few and far between, but there is a possibility that, you know, we can't tell people you don't get an STR because you decided that it was good enough.
Yeah, right.
As it is, and that's, you know, everyone's case is different.
It would be nice to see the data on the back end of performance, not just the like use and everything, but the complaints and look at it from like an enforcement or from a re-renewal and have a little bit more checks in the future if it's required. And having that come forward.
We ran all the permits through the police department
Mhm.
and, they came back and said none of them, even though the police may have been called, you know, maybe for one thing or another, somebody was locked out, somebody got hurt, there was an ambulance call, none of the calls or whatnot would prohibit the reason.
Enough to be detrimental to the application process. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's promising then, yeah.
So,
I wonder what the numbers are in Lake George or Glens Falls, wherever your story was.
So there's a lot of creative things that people have done for STR, so there they, I think it was Glens Falls. The ones around the lake weren't limited to the number of days they could rent out.
They were
an STR, but anybody that was outside that district was limited to the number of days, and it was like 30 days or something.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because they felt like everybody should be able to rent it out, but not in, they somehow came to the conclusion that if everybody had up to 30 days, it wouldn't also impact the hotels and things like that. That was their solution. It was really interesting.
I have a quick question.
They just barely passed it.
I have a question, and maybe somebody here knows the answer to this. So, or a suggestion on how you want to go forward with it. Penn Harbor Hill has always been an STR. They want to sell it. But mostly it's an expensive place, it's on the lake.
Yeah.
The only people they keep on wanting to buy it are people who, well, aren't village residents, but that's beside the point. Well, no, it's not. So they're not village residents. So this person emailed me today and said, all right, well, it's booked though. It's booked until the end of the summer. If I buy it now, what happens to those bookings? You know, in theory, you go.
Is that a bed and breakfast or is it
No,
an
it's
STR?
an STR. It's an existing STR. There's somebody from out of town who's gonna buy it, so they won't be able to have a permit. But what do you do with those bookings? And
Responsibility of the buyer.
You know, responsibility of the buyer, or do we also not wanna just introduce, do we want all these people who already have vacations coming here to Saranac Lake? Is there any room for us to say, we understand the predicament and that this is a special situation, and if you were to buy the home this year, you can keep your, the rentals until the end of the summer and then it's over. Because now we're just upsetting a lot of.
No, because a lot of the things that you're approving are done by attestation. So you can't just say, yeah, we'll let you do it, because they have to go through the whole same process. And they shouldn't be having people stay there until they have finished the process and that they have attested to all of the requirements, whatever the requirements are at the time.
From say, to answer your question about the people losing out, what generally happens is there's a time frame from when you disclose the house for sale and this rental can be changed up to so many days before your arrival date.
Right.
Or the sale of the property gets extended until honoring rentals through whatever their calendar.
Okay, I like that.
So that's
It all
generally
has to be extended through the summer.
So
I mean, like West is a lot that would happen. Most people wanted to buy a vacation rental as an investment property. That was the problem with West. But a lot of times, some people, they would honor certain rentals or they wouldn't. They would either cancel them and they'd get rented somewhere else, and the property would close, or it would get an extended contract and it would close after those dates were honored.
Right, thank you.
So they would set like a select booking date, be like September or whatever.
It depended on in classes with a lot of the rental departments, they would say, hey, this is for sale, so you can book this July 15th for a week. But if the property sells, by July 1st or June 15th, we have to notify you, you get relocated.
Right.
Or we can say we can't close on this property because we made an obligation and contract with these renters, and we can't transfer, in this case, we can't transfer the ownership.
Right.
We have to honor that, so we can't close until after. That's a real estate thing here.
Right, that makes sense. But that would be a potential situation with the owner occupied, no exemption, like the sample you brought up of like rolling over ownership and still having to go through the process, like we could start running into that in theory more.
I don't know, I would think you'd have to close them, that'd be a gamble, right? Because you'd have to close on a property, you have to go through the process, you still, even though you're exempt, you still come before us, you still.
Right.
Well, and these people would never be able to come to the process because they're out of town.
Yeah, right, in that example.
Unless they were coming through, not necessarily.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking the transition of ownership.
There's so many different ways, I mean, in real estate, every experience is a new one. So,
Now, is everyone comfortable?
It's getting late,
We're
yeah.
getting late.
I'm
Right,
comfortable, I see where you're going, and it's just a debate, I think in my mind now, do you put a cap on and see where that takes you with the data, or you don't put a cap on and see where the data takes you and come back, so it's a little bit.
Yeah,
Do you go out there?
as far
or
as
you
the caps
just-
are concerned, I think that was part of the discussion with number 10 too, was like, it's a starting point. And
Yes.
see where it.
Right, like
See
you
where it
say,
goes.
like, if you don't think it's gonna open the floodgate, you just have some kind of stopgap that says, okay, owner occupied, we'll do 10 years.
maybe you could make your exemption for owner occupied a lot more specific, like Chase, for example. In theory, you said he could rent his whole house, but his intent, as it turned out, was to only run 2 rooms.
Well, I think that's where, I think that's
Maybe
where
you
the
can dial it in.
Where you.
application. needs
Application has to
That's what I'm
be,
saying.
has to say it,
So
yeah.
if it's an owner occupied space and your intent is literally to offset your expenses, tell us what you're, I mean, I'm only renting 2 rooms with a max of 4 people, or, you know,
Right.
whatever it is.
And just to be clear, what happened there with Chase is the first time that's ever happened, where people had told me.
But it worked out perfectly for this conversation.
Yeah, it did, I know. Of course, specifically, I don't want you to have the thought that, these things are flopping all over the place. Normally, people say, I'm really surprised, he didn't need to do that. I looked at him, like, you really wanna just do the basement, like, you're allowed to have your whole house. So I don't know why he did that, but,
Right.
yeah.
No, I
He's
just
a
think that.
public guy.
I think that, honestly, I think there are a lot of people that always, when I came to a lot of those exceptions before the law maybe moved into place. And a lot of people would say, hey, I'm not gonna afford this property, I put all this work into it, so there's a lot of things that you're saying that make sense to have an owner occupied exemption. There's not a lot of work that went into implementing the law that's in place, and then there's moving forward, how do you not run this or that loophole? There's always a loophole that someone's looking for.
You kind of have
to hurt the system, so.
You have to get the right fit,
Yeah,
you
well,
know, and. It'd be great if we already have all the data, but we don't. So.
Right.
What do you have against putting a cap on owner occupied? Why not say that? Like, what harm does that do? If we don't think that things are gonna get out of control, and then you think it's just gonna be a small number, why not a cap? I mean, we have a cap on the other one, so why not a cap on this one?
Just the circumstances are different and throughout, so this is my personal opinion. Okay, I'm not speaking for the board at this point, this is my personal opinion. As we were going through all the conversations on the exemptions and all the reasons we would grant an exemption or that people wanted to grant an exemption. One of the things that kind of solved all those problems and made it a true exemption was if we allowed owner occupied to rent out their homes. But I mean, they would still have to. They don't automatically get in, they still have to go through the whole process.
Right.
That's the fail safe, like, so they're not gonna, you have to abide by all the laws that are there, you're just not capped.
Right.
And that's also, it's just. The evolution of it throughout our discussion on STRs and who gets exempt and who doesn't. And how we would apply that, how do we measure that, how do we define that without discriminating or setting ourselves up for.
I guess part of my issue is, we use the special use permit, which is the highest bar to cross. But yet these things are still an allowable use residentially. So when it comes to residential homes, there really is no criteria to check off, say yes, this or that. I don't see we have that much, I don't
No, they would
see me
still-
having that much power
Yeah.
to stop it really.
Yeah, they would still have to, you would still have to apply the same criteria, although I think there's 9 reasons or 9 whatever's. On the special use permit, you would still have to weigh that and say, is this gonna change the character of the neighborhood? It's just, you wouldn't deny it because you're already at the cap. They still have to abide by everything else.
I know,
The character kind of drives me nuts, because obviously it does, and we all knew that a little bit, and yet we allowed the STRs, which is fine. But yes, STRs change the character of the neighborhood, so, well, you know, but we're pretending that it's not, and they're all saying that it's not, but, you know what I mean, like, it's like, the question are like, how does this fix bicycle, traffic safety and pedestrian safety? It's like, the questions for the special use permit, the only reason that application is being used is because it allowed for the public hearing. It doesn't address actual STR issues.
that's the way I see it, I mean.
And that, so I know you.
So that would have to be, you would have to remodel the process at that point, but the process that's in place should.
The questions don't.
Well,
Should
really,
go through it.
short or special use permits are hard, it's for a use.
Yeah.
But when you
You're
look up,
using your
you look up the
property for something
definition
else.
of short-term resident, rentals, it says it's a residential dwelling. So then you go over to, what do we do for residential dwellings? Usually, the development board doesn't even see them. Most residents, you know, single family and 2-family don't come before us. They're permitted or they're administrative.
But when that happens, they're following the code for that area, the zoning restrictions and everything else.
Well, these STRs would still have to do that, but they're pretty much there. And I just don't see the same thing as when there's you know, something new coming or it's the Overshot, you know what I mean? Where they're gonna have, it's a big site, there's a lot of traffic coming in and out. It's commercial. And I see that's where we have more power with that. When it falls to residential, again, and I think the state still looks at this as residential properties. That, I don't know how we already have a thing that says the garbage is this, but in residential areas, the garbage does not have to be hidden or screened.
Free parking, there's no parking.
And if it was downtown and it was a special use permit, we could say you have to screen your garbage cans. Now they're just not supposed to leave them in the right of way or on the sidewalk, and you know how many people do? You want a job? Go out and
Especially on a snowy day.
I mean, the only.
When I'm done here, I'm gonna write up a bunch of people, that's a my.
Family that they couldn't have a pond out in the backyard.
Yeah.
Somebody came and like got a small in the windows. You know, so at that point, we're like, okay, you're not allowed to do that anymore. You have to, that's the condition, you have to move that over to a gas fire pit. But I mean, that's as close as it goes as far as like, it's more like we give them conditions. Because each STR really is the same thing. There is a people just doing the same thing, you know, they're no different from every application, there's no difference between them.
It's just.
I think there is a difference, and the difference is in the details. I think there is difference, and really, if you have to be willing to enforce what you put on the books. And if there's something that's going out of control and you need law for it, then you go through the process to make a law about it. But if you're not willing to enforce that, it's really, you know, it's like the speed limit. If we didn't enforce the speed limit, do you think people would actually drive it?
No.
You mean like us enforcing the special use permit process?
We should be enforcing.
But I mean, that's what I'm saying, there's nothing to, what, like, give me.
You can revoke their permit if they're not.
Right, but at the beginning, when they come through, what is an example of somebody bringing something to us where we would go, oh, no, this is not good. Like, no one's gonna come up here and go, oh, I plan on not, you know, paying attention to this and doing, you know, there's no criteria really to say no, because it's allowable use throughout the village. And then the village trustees, which is fine, said, okay, and on top of that, you can have them in these districts. why, how would we say no to somebody? We can say, well, you have to be careful with your garbage. And, you should think about parking really hard to don't want to upset your neighbors, but there's nothing really else that, right? And like.
Yeah, I mean, you can park anywhere I could drive over in front of your home and park there. If there was no sign that said no parking, I could park anywhere I want in Village.
You could park at Lands.
But you know what I mean? So,
I can barely get up my hill.
Well, I noticed there's some people that live on Olive Hill. And
That's
they
bad.
have tough driveways, so they park on William Street.
That's bad.
And you'll see the street, there's their car, there's their truck with their boat on it. And their house is down here, but there's no law against that. I mean, if someone parks within, I
The
think, is
complaint
it
that I
30 feet
like
of
the parking
intersection, you have to keep clean or something, so that you got visibility, then there's something you can say, but. And you can ask about, using, dark light for the lighting and stuff, but I mean, you can put that as a condition, I don't know if it's enforceable or not, though.
I can see the stars. I mean, that's what their opinion, and I appreciate it,
So I-
I'm just saying it's not necessarily fact.
And the thought that we're taking away the exemption so that the village board doesn't have to go through them and then they're kind of passed to us because we're supposed to have like a set of criteria.
Yeah, I don't think it's so the village board doesn't have to go through them, but it's addressing a need that we saw. That's addressing a need that we saw through this process, and you're always gonna tweak the process until it fits, right?
Which is fine, and for whatever reason, but there's not some magic criteria that we have where we're able to stop gap SDRs. It's just not how it's set up.
Well,
So-
they have to go through they have to go through the process, they should be
Yeah.
filling out the application
Yeah.
properly, proving ownership, all of that stuff.
But
If they
that's the
meet,
that's it, that's the criteria.
if they meet all that criteria, then that's what you guys are here to do, is does it meet this criteria?
Right, that's what I'm saying, everyone in the end, all 116 plus these 5 have met that criteria, they don't go through the process if they don't meet the criteria. So I'm just saying that's not a stopgap. That's all, that's not a
It's just,
stopgap.
it's just
People
making
want it.
sure that people know that it's not like you don't have to register or you don't have to apply for a permit because you're owner occupied.
Yeah.
The STR law still applies,
Yes,
it's only the cap that doesn't.
I
Which
mean-
means your your permit can get revoked because you misbehaved. All those things are in place, it's
but I guess the residents.
it's not like a
Yeah.
carte blanche.
I mean, we already give them approved with conditions, you know what I mean? And it just really applicants shall apply for a short-term rental permit. Camping is not permitted. Comply with the village peace and good order, in other words, but everybody should do that, right?
They should.
Parking shall be allowed solely in approved spaces. So if the village has approved you parking all the way up Neal Street. And then you can park there, anybody can. Joe Blow from California can drive his car up and park it there.
Yeah.
So I mean, compliance with the signage requirements, I mean, we said. And owners shall be responsible for all refuge and garbage removal in conformance with 106/96 of the village code. So everything really is listed here, and they can't sub-rent it, So we do have criteria, and it's more like just making them, as you said, filling out the application properly and fully, and then understanding their conditions.
And then specificity with the permit, to match what they applied for.
Right,
That's,
Right.
yeah, and if they're following the law and they're under the caps and everything else, then.
so it's kind of, as Katrina said, and I remember, that's what they said was, they wanted to make sure that the public notices went out. So they picked special use. Because actually in site plan review, it can be up to Katrina or the board to decide if they feel it has reached the level that it needs.
Well, yeah, and there's,
So-
like
so-
it says in the law that you should have, the person who sent out the notices should provide a list to Katrina of proof that they sent out all the notices to houses within 200 feet.
Yeah,
Like, we should be making sure that happens.
that does happen.
And, you know, just, but those are the little things that they have to go through the process, they should,
right, oh, yes.
you know.
Yeah,
So that
It seems to me like there was this thought that like people were gonna get here and have done all those things but then we were gonna be like, well, this applicant, you know, we don't have the judgment to be saying like, oh, well, there's already 4 on the street, so now you're not gonna get one. You know, it really is, did you do the requirements as you were supposed to? So I guess I just wanna clearly say, you know, we're not a stopgap, so
And-
if everyone just keeps on coming in with owner occupied.
Owner occupied exemption is for any district.
Correct.
I mean, if someone has a deck and happens, you know, we live in a very hilly area, so somebody's always looking up or they're looking down. So I mean, if they have a deck and you go, oh, I don't want them looking over at me, it's like, well, you were on your deck looking back that way, so I mean, I don't see how you can say, oh, you know, you can't have that deck.
Yeah,
Because we don't want
that
it.
came up today, I was kind of thinking the same thing.
Actually, I thought you answered it pretty well, unless it's fire safety.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Shows up, 'cause that's really, you know, I have my opinion, everyone has their opinion, I'll be interested to see how the public speaks out at the public hearing.
Yeah.
For this, you know, because there are some very adamant, residents who really don't want these in their backyards, and that's what we're opening up.
I'm not siding either way, but from another perspective, is there's gonna be a lot of people who advocate on property rights. That are gonna say, hey, I don't wanna do a long-term rental because of all these reasons that we've all heard over and over. But I could still use, you know, $15,000 or $20,000 to help offset high village taxes.
Well, and
The new roof that I have to put on my house or whatever it is. So I can see a lot of people that wear a lot of hats around here that struggle. Are gonna be happy with that opportunity because they were the ones who were disgruntled during all those work sessions.
well, and I think that COVID really put a bad taste in people's mouth for long-term rentals. There were a lot of landlords that got burned.
Oh, yeah, that's what,
Yeah.
They flocked.
my sister dumped her apartment as quick as she could.
Yeah, it was just, and those rights kick in at 31 days. That's,
Those residents.
yeah, it's, I think that's kind of, I think that also played into the increase in short-term rentals. Is that,
I mean, the housing thing is so complex. Short-term rental isn't. Short-term-
no, it's not.
I mean, you could blame it on the, you know, the APA and all that. They stopped any kind of commercial or industrial stuff here. All that was left was I Love New York promotions for tourism up here.
People have
So, I
traditionally
mean,
come here. People have traditionally come here to vacation. Someone's camp.
Yeah.
I mean, alternatively, we had a wedding, we had guests named them staying in short-term rentals because they looked at the cost of the hotels here and they're like, that's ridiculous. Like, we could put our whole family up in this house.
You're 100% right. And I would take out it, done. No, we're happy to. Hey, are you kidding me? I got something else to do. Yeah. Okay,
Well, thank
it was
you.
very nice, meeting and conversation,
Yeah.
and, keep at it, and I'm sure you guys, board,
Well,
do
and I
right.
think that, well, I'll talk to you after you guys close the meeting.
Okay, great. You good?
Okay, motion to.
I'll second it. I'll second it.
Katie makes that motion, Tim seconds, it. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Anyone? No, no, let's go. Let's go home now.